In this video, we'll show you how to determine the quadrant of angles that are given in both radians and degrees. We'll start with degrees. And in order to determine the quadrant in which an angle lies, we'll remember that there are four quadrants. Quadrant 1 would go from 0 to 90 degrees, and then we go counterclockwise. So with radian measure, same thing, we'll break the circle up into four quadrants, and quadrant 1 is the top right, and then we number in a counterclockwise fashion from there. So we'll start with this problem. Determine the quadrant of pi over 5 radians and 7 pi over 5 radians. So I can see that my denominator is fifths. So I'm imagining taking pi, which is half a circle, and dividing it into fifths. So here's pi over 5, and then 2 pi over 5, etc. We could also do the bottom of the circle, and we could number this 6 pi over 5, 7 pi over 5, etc. To look at our quadrants, the first problem that we have is pi over 5. We can see right away that it's in quadrant 1. The second problem is 7 pi over 5, and we can see that that one is in quadrant 3. So that may feel like a lot of work to you to divide the circle up into that many parts. I have an easier way that also hopefully will make sense to you. We'll consider our quadrants, and if we just consider pi as 5 pi over 5 and 0 as 0 or 10 pi over 5, now up at the top, that's halfway to 5 pi over 5, so that's 2.5 pi over 5, and underneath that would be 7.5 pi over 5. So if we're thinking about 1 pi over 5, that would be right around here. That's quadrant 1. And 7 pi over 5 would be pretty close to 7.5 pi over 5, which is quadrant 3. So see, we can still visualize the circle without having to divide it into so many equal parts. Now the next problem, we're given a negative angle, so negative 11 pi over 9 radians. Now what we know is that we can add or subtract 2 pi to anything, and it does not change the value. So I'm going to add 2 pi radians, which I'll write in terms of ninths. So I could also look at 7 pi over 9. That would be in the same quadrant as negative 11 pi over 9. So thinking about pi, that would be 9 pi over 9. The 0 would also be 18 pi over 9. Now halfway would be 4.5 pi over 9. And I can see now that 7 pi over 9 lies between those two. So therefore that would be in quadrant 2. Now we'll take a look at radians that do not have a pi associated with it. So because of this, instead of thinking of pi radians, we want to think of it as 3.14 radians. And 2 pi radians would be 6.28, or 0, right? So halfway between 0 and 3.14 would be 1.57 radians, and directly underneath that would be 4.71. So when we think about where does 2.25 lie, it lies right here in the second quadrant.